these days when we talk about it, we talk about how it's managed these days as opposed to the late 80s when it was really horrible.
I talk it with my friends, in my family, but that's it, not with others.
I don't talk about it as HIV, but as a way I communicate it to my family members. I communicate a principle which we learn from the church called the law of chastity. It's a divine law which teaches us as heads of families to observe and teach it to our families. That is a total fidelity to a married man like me, and also abstinency.
I usually feel more comfortable talking about HIV with friends. I have a couple of friends who once in a while will say something regarding somebody who had to go for a checkup, or ever so often me and a couple of friends of mine will find a day where we will actually go and do our HIV test and perhaps let everybody know I went and did an HIV test today. With family, usually the discussion about HIV comes around when maybe a sister, brother, cousin, auntie, uncle is trying to say you need to be careful about your life, or maybe somebody will make a joke about I hope you're using condoms, but usually that's as limited as the debate or the discussion will go.
I'm very okay with it, probably because of the friends I have. They're free. We could talk about anything, from alcohol, drugs, church, spiritual things, money, sexual orientation, everything. We talk about anything. My parents, most of the time when they do, it's in cases when they want to pass on some advice to us as the younger generation, and they do it in a creative way that feels comfortable.
I think it really depends on them. If they're comfortable, I'm comfortable. Yeah. Though many people are not comfortable, it still kind of has, some people are scared to talk about it anyway. I would also be scared to talk about it because I don't know the people I'm with. I don't know if you are HIV positive, so I have my reservations as to what I should say. So you have to be a little careful when you're talking about it because you don't know people's statuses and you don't know what people feel about it.
Through newspapers, there are posters, they're hanging around the streets, over radio, they are there. But as in a community, people have difficulties in everything they do. Because others, like in the newspapers, some people they don't afford to buy the newspapers to get what is there inside. So it's advisable for government to do all means, try to educate the community.
There are posts, there are radio shows, and some newspaper talk about it, some.
Before, when I was growing up, it used to be, all over, just about everywhere. From TV, the media, from TV, radio, to billboards, newspapers, So everybody knew about HIV and AIDS and what it would do and what it was all about. So, but right now, I think I don't see any. I should say it's kind of going down a bit, as far as sensitization is concerned. Because back in the day, it used to be about, everybody used to know about HIV and AIDS. From every day, it used to be pumped into your head. Abstinence, condom use, every day. But these days, kind of like dwindled down a little bit. Rural areas, you don't even hear about it. You don't hear people talking about it, Yeah, but all you hear about is somebody got sick or somebody died from it. That's all you hear about it.
Yeah, recently I've never tried to put myself keenly about finding out about these things, but in the past there are some papers which does publish these things, like there's this one for the youth. I'm forgetting it. It talks about HIV, straight talks, and in the newspapers as well you get some pages which mention a few things about HIV. Yes, I've not seen so much billboards, but I've seen people put adverts on condoms on billboard, but it talks about birth control methods, not HIV actually.
I lost family members, but that was in the early 90s, at a certain time when so many people died and everybody was scared to talk about it. So for me, it affected me because I lost family, yeah, and friends along the way, but mostly family. So I know what it is and I know how bad it is.
It has affected me emotionally because I have close friends in my life and some distant relatives who are infected with HIV. And it's a whole lot of work taking care of these people. It's not only the physical, for example, buying drugs to give to them and the nutritional supplements. It's not only that. There is more. There is the emotional trauma, the pity, the empathy. So I think the emotions, I've been affected emotionally.
My personal life, I'm not so much threatened about it. Yes, because I know that I need to do something in my family setting. I need to have a continuous dating to talk about strengthening my relationship and making my wife to be more stronger to me. I believe by that I'm very far from HIV.
Well, HIV has affected me personally because there were times when I've actually been risky in terms of how I relate with the people who I am involved with. And there were those times that you actually began to say, I probably could have caught HIV. And I've gone for lots of HIV tests in my life. For every time that has happened, the counselors have asked you exactly what would you do if you actually found that you have HIV. So those experiences were very, memorable. I remember them every other time. But at the same time, at the age of 15, I lost a cousin, a very close cousin of mine, to HIV. But I only learned that he had passed on from HIV. This was after his passing on. We just thought that he was this very sickly cousin of ours who, for some reason, would never stop falling sick. And we just thought that, oh, well, that's exactly what is unfortunate about him. But then later on, we got to learn from my uncle, who actually is a very senior doctor and researcher in HIV, who said, well, that's exactly what we're talking about. He died of HIV from his parents back from the early 80s. He has been surviving basically on as much treatment as they could offer him.
I didn't see the necessity to go and check your status. Now I know it's important and it's something you have to do.
Actually, it's like in African tradition, when we follow the tradition things, it will have helped us. When you take the grandparents, they used to stick to one wife or two, they don't move out. But these days people say it's the modernization which kills people mostly. So it all depends according to a person. What should you do in order to protect yourself from such incidents?
At a much younger age, I definitely was very concerned and very protective of what I need to do to protect myself from HIV. And those were what I would call the much earlier days when you were very careful about, social stigma. And those were the times when social stigma was such a big deal. And abstinence was such a huge message for us back in the time when we were growing up. And just generally, HIV was a very scary thing. Now, not necessarily the case. Now I would say HIV is like catching malaria, except that you might have malaria for a very long time. But if you're diligent with your drugs, you probably could just be all right.
It needs to target young married people. And then these young girls at school, in universities, who like the so-called sugar daddies. So somebody needs to target that group of people. But this generic message of abstinence and be careful and condoms and etc. It's become boring.
Edutainment, especially for people in school, there's a lot of sex going on in school, unprotected sex. And I know there's a problem with people. You have to come up with a way of entertaining these kids while giving a message to them. When I was younger, there were TV shows that showed, there was one called Consequences. It was very famous here, that shows a young couple in school and then the girl gets pregnant, and that scared the hell out of me. At least it kept me going for some time, you know. So educate people while entertaining them, not like you're forcing information into their brains. Let them enjoy it and also get a message from it. Either way they're having this sex, so if they can have protected sex, it will be good. People
who are living in the urban centers already know what's up. They really know what's up, actually. It's just that, you know, some are just beheaded or some just don't care. We need to put a little bit more emphasis on the rural areas as well, because these are people, first of all, say for example condoms, because I bought condoms before, and you know, my favorite kind of condoms cost 5,000 shillings a box. 5,000 shillings, I'm like, that's too much. That's really too much. I mean, something should be done. At least condoms should be, you know, not expensive. It should be very, very affordable. And also use people like us, the singers as well, celebrities, you know, teach the people more about, you know, HIV, AIDS, you know, and condom use and abstinence. I still believe abstinence is a trick, you know. Really, I still believe it's a trick, because we're all just human beings. Everybody's gonna have sex at the end of the day. So I still believe we should push for condom use, like really, condom use.
Condoms are not 100% efficient. That one is agreed. Those who make it, even they may say that perhaps it's a little bit strong, but they may say it is 99. But abstinence, we know that is just 100% perfect. So. But I'll suggest the religious setting section where we teach them total abstinence. We need to get our youth to understand this, that they can use condoms, but before God they'll have violated the law of chastity, they'll have committed fornication. A married man like me can go out and sleep with another man's woman. It does not change anything. The fact is that I have committed adultery, despite I use condom. And I think we need to teach people correct principle, then we leave them to govern themselves. But the idea that if you cannot abstain, or if you cannot be faithful to your wife, you need to use condom, I think that will excite the youth to think that if I use condom, then I'm justifiable, even by a divine law. It may promote immorality. They should say this: I can and overcome all these challenges. I can abstain.
Just let's imagine I've been having 5 different girlfriends, you know, and I'm sleeping around, and this one I use protection, this one told me she's a virgin, and just that one question about my life, responsibility, vision, mission, your level of productivity, that's enough to have a whole check, and I'm like, you know what? I'm heading somewhere. I'm not going to marry all these girls. They're just slowing me down. Let me focus. So that's when we come down to relevance. You know, and then when we understand that, then we'll know that this group of people, the border riders, how do they look at life? Then we get to study their lens through which they look at life. When we do that, then we craft our message in proportion or according to how they look at life.
When you have found your HIV, maybe you have tested you are positive, they must get a specific place to keep such a people. Because when I know I'm HIV positive, governments will put me in a place whereby I cannot move in the different societies, so that one can reduce the chances of HIV positive.
Is that fair?
It's fair.
It's like a leper.
No, it is fair. It's fair. Because I kill innocent people. There are those ones, because you find life may be hard for someone, and I come, I have money, I give to some girl, a young girl, because of the difficulties she's facing, she accepts, and there, I may end up killing her. As that was how I can think governments should do more.
I think there should be a way of find a strategy to talk about it and make it interesting. Not repeating the same thing, not repeating the same sketches, not repeating the same interviews, but do something new that can make people interested to know about HIV and HIV prevention.